is cytogenetic analysis. How is called chromosome banding analysis. Banding analysis. Okay. By this technology, you are going to find out any gross abnormalities of the chromosomes. It is almost equal to karyotyping of a human's genome. For example, if you are diagnosing, you are coming across a case of chronic myeloid leukemia, okay, you are looking for the Philadelphia chromosome. Philadelphia chromosome, that is translocation between 9 and 22. That produces an abnormal PH chromosome or Philadelphia chromosome. So you do the cytogenetic analysis. So you will see this is 1 and this is 9 and this is 22. The 22 chromosome will be seen as an abnormal chromosome. Or example, in acute promyelocytic leukemia, you are going to look for the translocation 15 and 17 abnormality. Or you can find out trisomy 21 or any major deletion, monosomy, disomy, etc. etc. These are the gross abnormalities which can be picked up in a chromosome by the cytogenetic studies or the chromosome banding analysis. Now, what is the next step is, after you find out the chromosomal abnormality with the cytogenetic study, the next one is your task is to confirm this abnormality by the FISH technique. FISH is fluorescence in situ hybridization technique. FISH and PCR are almost the same, but the different technology is being used. In the FISH, actually, now you, for example, you take CML. CML, you have found out by cytogenetic that there is a Philadelphia chromosome. And now your task is to find out what is the molecular abnormality in that Philadelphia chromosome. That can be carried out by the FISH. So FISH is concentrating on a particular part of a particular gene, for particular part of a chromosome. For example, PH chromosome. Now you are looking for the FISH technology whether the BCR-Abelson rearrangement has happened or not. Because sometimes the cytogenetic study, the PH chromosome will not be detected. That's called PH negative. But when you do the FISH study, fluorescence in situ hybridization, you will find out that the BCR-Abelson rearrangement has happened on chromosome number 22 and it is present even though PH is absent by the cytogenetic study. That is the importance of the FISH. And the FISH, you are using certain DNA probes. These DNA probes are fluorescein labeled. So for example, in AML, acute myeloid leukemia patient, there is a set of DNA probes which will be used for the FISH, fluorescence in situ hybridization study, to find out the major deletions and mutations in AML. So these DNA probes, when are added to the bone marrow cells, for example in CML, the DNA probe which is targeted to the BCR-Abelson gene will go and bind to the gene on chromosome number 22, and when you are looking at the fluorescent microscope, it will fluoresce and pick up the BCR-Abelson rearrangement. That is the FISH technology, where you use the DNA probes which is studying a part of the chromosome. A particular gene of interest is being studied. And most of the diseases, there will be a panel of DNA probes looking for those particular mutations and deletions. Now, after the FISH being done, then you will confirm again by PCR. PCR and FISH is almost the same, but PCR is more concentrating on the abnormal transcript, mRNA transcript of that particular gene. For example, in CML, you have found by the FISH technology that the BCR-Abelson rearrangement is there on chromosome number 22. Now, by the PCR technology, you are going to find out the mRNA transcript of that particular gene. Because that abnormal gene is going to produce a protein, and to produce that protein or enzyme, there should be an mRNA transcript. that transcript will be detected by the PCR technology. Here you are using certain primers. In fish you are using the DNA probes. Here you are using the DNA primers. These primers will detect that mRNA transcript, and that can be either a qualitative or a quantitative PCR. A qualitative PCR is just like the fish, but it is more precise and more specific. Quantitative, they will quantify the mRNA transcript, and nowadays we use the real-time PCR. There is a reverse transcripted PCR and real-time PCR, but the real-time PCR being used nowadays to quantify. Now, a patient of CML is coming to you, so your first task is to send a panel of blood tests as well as bone marrow aspiration. This bone marrow cells will be sent for the cytogenetics, then FISH and PCR. The cytogenetics and FISH are done in the cytogenetic lab, and PCR is done in the molecular lab. So the cytogenetics will say that okay, PH chromosome is positive. Then that will be confirmed by the FISH by the PCR Abelson rearrangement in that Philadelphia chromosome. And now PCR will concentrate more on the mRNA transcript of these PCR Abelson gene, and they will quantify. So at the beginning, the PCR, the quantity will be 100% in most of the cases of CML. 3 months you will repeat the test, then it should be 10% after starting the therapy. Then 6 months it will be 1%, and 9 months it should be 0.1%. I'll rewrite again. So you have a case of CML, okay, you have done the cytogenetics and also the FISH, followed by the PCR. Now the PCR will say, the quantitative PCR will say, the BCR Abelson transcript is 100% at the beginning. You started the tyrosine kinase inhibitor, and that repeated at 3 months, you are aiming at 10%. At 6 months, you are aiming at 1%. At 9 months, you are aiming at 0.1%. At 12 months, you are aiming at 0.01%. And after that, you are aiming at 0.032% and then 0.001%. So if you achieve at the 6 months 1%, okay, it's good response to the treatment. And at 9 months, if you get 0.1%, that means patient has got a major molecular response. And if you get 0.001% after 12 months, then that's got a deep molecular response. These two, 10% and 1%, is called early molecular response. Okay, so your aim is to achieve a deep molecular response of either 0.1% to 0.001%. That is the aim. So major molecular response to deep molecular response is the target. And if this response is maintained for 2 to 3 years, then you are sure that this patient is going to have a treatment-free remission. You can stop the medications and you can follow up every month with the PCR. If the PCR, in that case, if it relapses, then you have to restart the treatment. Now, regarding the DNA analysis, now there is DNA sequencing can be done now. DNA sequencing can be done for a human genome. Okay, human genome DNA sequencing can be done. You know the DNA is made up of nucleotides. Okay, the nucleotides. So by DNA sequencing, you are studying the nucleotide structure of the whole genome. And you know there is exons and introns. The exons are the coding portion of a DNA. The exons are the one which give instruction to make a protein. They are called exons. If you take a whole human genome, 1% of the genome is constituted by the exons, and that if you study all the exons of a human genome, It is called whole exome sequencing. Whole exome sequencing. Exons, the whole exons of a genome is called exome. Okay. Now the DNA analysis first they started doing only for the exons. That's called the whole exome sequencing, using either Sanger sequencing or next generation sequencing. I will tell you what is Sanger sequencing and next generation sequencing. They also found out that in human diseases, 99% of the mutations are in the exons of the DNA. So by a whole exome sequencing, you can find out most of the mutations which cause the genetic diseases. But then recently they have found out not only the mutations in the exons, which are the protein coding region of a DNA, even the non-coding regions of the DNA like introns mutations can also produce diseases. So they wanted to study the whole exon and introns of the DNA. That is called the whole genomic analysis or whole genome sequencing. So there are two types of DNA sequencing: whole exome sequencing, where you study only the exons and the mutations, and whole genome sequencing, where you are studying the whole genomic DNA, including the non-coding portions of the DNA like introns. Now for this DNA analysis, there are two methods. One is the Sanger sequencing. That was the conventional, the original method, the Sanger sequencing. Sanger sequencing. Okay. The Sanger sequencing, the disadvantage is it's very cumbersome, and if you want to study the human genome, it will take many years by the Sanger sequencing technology. So the Sanger sequencing has been now automated, and it is used to study only a short piece of the DNA. A short piece of the DNA you can study using the Sanger sequencing. After that, they have developed another refined method called the next generation sequencing. Next generation sequencing, where you can study the whole genomic DNA in a few days' time with a few drops of blood or with a few drops of bone marrow. That's called next generation sequencing. You can study the introns, you can study the exons, using the next generation sequencing, you can do either whole exome sequencing or whole genomic sequencing can be done. And by the next generation sequencing, they will find a lot of mutations. Some of the mutations may not be pathological. They are just existence in a human being without any disease. But there are advantages. For example, in myelodysplastic syndrome, they have found a lot of mutations by next generation sequencing like ASXL2, DNMT3A, TED2, etc. And they found that these mutations, if they are present in a clonal hematopoiesis or a clonal cytopenia of undetermined significance, by next generation sequencing, if you find these mutations, there is a chance that these people can develop into myelodysplastic syndrome or acute myeloid leukemia. So that is the advantage of the next generation sequencing. Thank you.